This week, we're diving into the little known phenomenon of psychic warfare, psychic protection, and psychic manipulation. For instance, what are Scott and I doing to you right now?
Ooh.
There are so many people that are disconnected from their internal guidance. My mission is to change that.
I don't just talk stuff and repeat stuff. I'm living this stuff.
I'm your Carol Master and Bad Vibe Blaster.
And you can thank me for covering your astro.
Leading out loud. Leading out loud. Leading out loud.
Hello and welcome to LOL Leading Out Loud. I'm astrologer Christopher Witecki, and I'm joined by...
Scott Cruz, psychic medium. How y'all doing?
Great to be here. We have a couple of things to talk about this week. We're diving into these psychic issues, and we are diving into the energies of the planet. First of all, one of our topics is the sun has dipped into the underworld, otherwise known as Scorpio. And while it's only hot as Hades in Australia, this is the time of the year where we all realize the veil between life and death is quite thin. Scott and I will be discussing these energies of the week. And later in our show, have you ever found yourself obsessing on an idea and not knowing where it came from? You could be under psychic manipulation. It was once called mesmerizing, but people through the centuries have used the power of their psyche to shift power in their favor. We'll talk about that later. But first, let's dive in as we always do with our Psychic Surf Report. Scott, I have to say the energy of this week has been Hades.
Yes.
The shift from high vibration Libra to the sun squaring Pluto on Tuesday, Sept 29, to the drop to 0 degrees Scorpio. It's been enough to make any human seasick. I've actually gone through all sorts of weird illnesses this week, but it's a huge energy drop because Scorpio is the bottom of energies, the foundational energy, the line.
Right.
And Libra is sort of like can be the highest highs of relations and being able to, get along. So we literally have this drop this time of the year. And then, of course, we have Halloween and we go into these darker periods. And Scorpio is always where we go into these parts of ourselves that we've been hiding from ourselves. Because Scorpio energy is our ability to put up a wall. And little do we know, sometimes, even as from childhood, for instance, if you have a trauma, your body automatically, your psyche puts up a wall automatically. But when Scorpio comes around, sometimes these ghosts get out and you start to, feel things that you didn't know you had going on. So it's kind of a spook fest to some degree as far as energy is concerned. How do you feel? Let's just start with just Scorpio for you every year as a psychic. What happens as a psychic when Scorpio hits?
Well, I mean, for me, I definitely can feel a lot of other people's energies, like you said, like a lot of the karmic stuff kind of releasing, but I also feeling a lot of like overconfidence in a lot of other people too. I think coming out of Libra season, there's been a lot has been revealed, and so people are like, okay, now I think I know myself, but they really quite found the footing of their confidence. So it's like overcompensated with confidence. So, and then when they get that footing going, especially this week, they might stumble a few and then go back in their shell again. So I really feel like it is time to really understand the voice during Scorpio season right now, and where you're deceiving yourself when it comes to that, overcompensation of confidence, and really settling into your own neutral voice of balance and reason, and not going too far to where you end up backtracking again, like we did before Libra season. So,
well, Scorpio is sort of all or nothing energy, and you don't know it until you know it. So it's one of the invisible energies, like the number 0 that is the conscious of Scorpio. It's nothing, and you don't even realize there's a 0 until you've been told there's a 0 there, right? And that's kind of how consciousness works with it. For me, it's my opposite sign, so it's my anti-birthday, where I'm the farthest away from myself in the whole year. So for me, it's like a personal, fun experience. But what happens, you talk about people being overconfident. I think that is, to some degree, one portion of the population, because another portion of the population suddenly gets thrown out of denial. Like it's sort of like you really realize like, oh, I've got a problem. Like, it's sort of there's a revealing there. There's sometimes secrets are revealed, right? Sometimes people are like, no, you really need to lose weight. Like, people tell you the harsh, bitter truth. And That's the thing. The Scorpio stinger, you've heard this before. The Scorpios have a stinger. That stinger is the god awful truth in your face at the worst moment. And that
Right.
happens through Scorpio, every season. But astrologically, the energies are about us getting really clear on our boundaries with ourself. As you go through the step numbers in the first week, this week we're in the very beginning. So 0, 1, 2, it'll be 2 degrees. Today's 1 degree. So this is the one day we're getting really close to our own hearts. So for
Right.
instance, if you've abandoned your own heart like a long time ago, or if
Right.
someone said something to you like in August, really mean, like it might hurt now in Scorpio, like, oh, because you were
Hmm.
able to, block it. The Scorpio boundary was strong, to protect yourself. And then it sort of melts or dissolves or becomes
Right.
transparent in the Scorpio season. So there's a lot of like, coming to Jesus with yourself in the first 10
Right.
days of Scorpio. And it's not pretty, right? It's never pretty.
Right. But I also think that's a test of like true confidence too, because if you're
Mm.
allowing yourself to like whatever stung you and you're out to like kind of stand up to it, look at it objectively, you could probably develop the best aspect of confidence, and the ego could be more imbalanced during this time too. If we're not willing to if we're not going to run away from that, and kind of like, oh, it's hurt my ego. So fuck everybody else. I'm just go and shut out the world. If we are able to look at that and, take the stinging as a sensation in a sense, a stinging sensation, then I think we'll actually find great balance with our ego during this time. So I think as much as there's that kind of density with Scorpio, we can also still evolve during that too and sync the aspect of spirit and the aspect of ego too. So it's working in a better balance. That's if you're not running away from it and being overly confident. And then, as you know, Christopher, people who are overly confident tend to say fuck off to people very quickly because they don't get what they want. And they don't, learn the lesson or change. So we have to be careful we're not doing that either.
Another theme of Scorpio is sexuality.
Yeah.
Because Scorpio, because the most probably famous boundary is
Mhm.
the one where we become one, right, with someone
Right.
physically, and you see that like in Halloween costumes and stuff that
Right.
like a sexy vampire and shit, like weird stuff
Or the
like that.
sailor, a gay
Yeah,
sailor.
totally. Yeah, you see that come out, but so that's another aspect of Scorpio. You said ego, but I thought you said eagle because Scorpio has this myth that there's
Mm,
two versions of the Scorpio energy. There's
interesting.
the creepy crawly thing that will sting you and pull the food into its den and eat it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the treacherous scorpion, right?
Right. Right.
But then there's the eagle, the idea that at some point somehow it evolves into an eagle and it has the ability to see the big picture and no
Exactly.
longer be tit for tat over
Right.
boundaries. And that is the evolution you see over scorpions or Scorpios
Absolutely.
rather.
And
Um,
precision. You think of like an eagle, even like a vulture, they have very good precision and vision.
yeah,
And
eagle
so
eye. Hmm.
it's not ironic. A lot of people I've been seeing have been having eye allergies. You particularly, my
Uh,
dog particularly. There's been a lot of like allergies in the eyes, and I've been having the crud in my eyes too. Let's zoom on and look at it,
thanks,
guys.
Adam.
Right?
Thanks for that
Clockwork orange in the
transparency.
eyes. Yeah,
Me
the
too,
clockwork orange
Aqua.
eyes.
Yeah, Aqua scoring a Scorpio.
But
Yeah, totally.
there's been a lot of that synchronicity of the eye infection, eye irritations, because again, like we got to have that precision right now, and I think it's all a good sign if we take it in that way. But I would
Right.
say, again, left eye to me is always the left hand path. You're not looking at any shadow versions. Right might be you're being overly empathetic.
Another interesting thing about Scorpio is, you start drawing lines with yourself in the first deck in the first 10 days, and then you start drawing lines with others in the second 10 days. And by the way, that second 10 days is the national election.
Yeah.
Our forefathers, who were astrologers and knew astrology,
They knew.
they did know astrology, and they
They
put the
did.
election right in the middle of the second week of Scorpio, where we're all drawing
Right.
boundaries. It's actually pretty brilliant, but it's
Yeah.
also we're like the one week of the year where we are. It's probably also brilliant in the sense that like this is where you're most fierce. So if
Right.
there wasn't something like an election going on, we might kill each other. As far as our divide is concerned, and then in the highest degrees of Scorpio, it's about the lines of society, what we will do and
Right.
won't do.
Yeah.
Sometimes Congress is trying to pass a lot of stuff in the last minute there before
Right.
Christmas break. So it's interesting because boundaries really aren't something we're taught in school. We're taught rules. We're told when we're crossed a line. It's funny. We're usually told when we cross a line, but we usually are not warned to not cross the line. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it doesn't usually come into that. So that's Scorpio. Well, next week, I'll just say, going the week forward, we are going to then be starting to finish up our boundaries with ourselves. and come to a new kind of fortitude inside ourselves. That's what Scorpio does. It's like, once you know where you're good and you're bad, you can
That's
own
right.
both. You can own both of them. I even tell people who have a hard time staying humble, it's like if you just own where you're bad, you'll always be humble. Like, hey, I suck at this, but I'm good at that. And that's kind of what Scorpio does. It sort of forces our life into two piles.
Ego. It's that ego
Yeah.
again. It's the recognition of ego. Because I'm saying if you don't nurture the ego, it's going to try to rule the show, And I always say this a lot of times. People say kill the ego. I'm like, no, we need the ego. We just have to understand its job. And I say if we nurture the ego, it will do what we need to, for it to do. In a sense, like we'd have to have an ego to put ourselves on the line in front of people, right? You need an ego that puts you in that state of I can do this. So if you let it do its job, then you can nurture and have that proper balance of being in sync. But so many people are just having the ego trying to run the show, and that's where things kind of collapse. And Scorpio season is definitely going to be the one season that's going to really shine a light on that, whether it's in balance or not. So again, the false sense of confidence, right, is something that we want to make sure we're not settling in.
I think that's a beginner Scorpio, but yes, I agree. I think, one that's new at being Scorpion. Let's remember, Scorpio, in my opinion, is the root chakra, going to solar plexus. And so this is, the genitals, this is reproduction, this is survival. Yeah. Yeah, survival instincts and that sort of thing. So we kind of get into that. Yeah. And then, of course, Halloween. Now, the last thing I'll put is the pagans saw Scorpio as the new year. In fact, pagans saw the full moon in Taurus as New Year's Eve, basically, because the sun was in Scorpio, destruction, and the earth was in Taurus, manifestation. And so it was life and death right there, the line between life and death. And in their opinion, life and death line was the new year. Somewhere along the line, we moved it, right, to some Capricorn moved it to January. That's what I always joke about. So, going forward, I just want, tell me what you pick up on the energy going forward this week. But I really think the upcoming week is, in essence, just us finding that fine line and finding our own integrity, feeling safe with ourselves, past the hard stuff, which is this week, and starting to feel like we've got our shift together. And once you have your shift together, the first thing you do is you look to the world and you go, oh, they don't have their shift together. Right. And that's the next chapter of it. What do you pick up on next week, though, psychically?
Well, kind of what I was saying before, very much similar to what I was saying, but I think like specifically this week ahead, I think that will be a push. You will feel push in a fire. You're burning about like really kind of feeling like you're able to accomplish what you want to accomplish moving forward. So again, that could be a very positive sense of confidence coming from the soul. But I also feel like, where you're overstepping your boundaries might also be revealed this week too. So if you're meddling in relationships, if you're meddling in certain aspects of things that you just shouldn't be putting your nose into, you'll be stung back in return on that and doing so. So it is about finding the fine lines about where you should be participating in your life or not. I think it's fitting. We picked this theme of protection for a reason, because it is the essence of setting boundaries, but also about protecting your own space too. For those who might be meddling in or middling in your energy that need not to be, you need to push back as well. And so I think this week is going to be very evident of that. And make sure you're also not overstepping your bounds either vocally, through action in relationships, whatever it may be. Stay in your lane this week.
Yeah, this is where it becomes really obvious I don't stay in my lane. That's what happens. It all becomes obvious. I can kind of smoke screen it and do a spin during the year, but not now.
Not now.
Triple brother Scorpio, who's very happy to always tell me that I'm out of my lane. So, yeah, very nice. Thank you, Michael. All right, well, we're going to move on to our next topic, but first we want to say we are now casting. Right now, if you or someone you know is an established light worker, you may be a great fit as a guest. We're looking for unconventional and unique spiritual practices that would add an interesting voice to our conversations with Scott and myself. If you'd like to be on the show, send us an email at support@SiriusStar.com. Obviously, tell us what you do. Maybe a headshot would be good too, because we read energy and we can read into that energy as well. And in the subject line, put LOL, and we'll figure out where that goes at some point. It's not a joke. We're really serious. All right. So I think this is where we move on and we segue to today's topic. So today's topic is psychic protection, as we brought up. And I'm going to introduce this topic from my own anecdote of my life, which is that growing up, I had a psychic as a mother, not super fine tuned. She was kind of like an AM radio. She'd come in and out with that stuff. She couldn't tell which one of us brothers were doing it, but she knew one of us was, that kind of thing. But my mother would always say that she was being psychically attacked from my father. And I was just like, oh, mom, whatever. I didn't believe it whatsoever. I didn't think dad had the time to do stuff like that. Why would he do it
Right.
anyways? Until I was in high school and I walk in on my dad who's in meditation, psychically attacking my mother.
Mm.
Like he was sending, and I was like, what are you doing, dad? I'm sending your mother some words, which is like, oh, I guess that's what
Yeah.
mom meant.
Words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I learned early on, and he did that to us too,
Yep.
to us kids. He would throw things in our heads. We were all very telepathic children.
Right.
So I learned very on, oh my gosh, this whole idea of psychic manipulation, this will be our first topic. Psychic manipulation is a thing. Okay.
Yes, it is.
It really is a thing. And you can, I've even practiced and done it a couple of times on my brothers, just to see if it worked. And like it works. Like basically you can just focus. I don't want to tell everyone how to, but you focus on you just focus on an idea and the person, an idea and the person, idea and the person, idea and the person. And basically what happens is the idea pops in their head and they think it's their idea,
Yeah.
right? Because no one knows where ideas come from, right?
Well, there has to be an established connection, right? So there needs to be some
Right.
sort of fundamental connection too. You can't just do it to some random person if they don't have the channel plugged in. But yeah, they can definitely do so by that intention.
The stronger
but
the
yeah,
emotional connection, the more powerful its delivery.
100%, right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Do you want to tell your story too? Because we'll get into different aspects. You tell your story too about what you experienced with your dad. Like, what certain things did you pick up from him that he was doing?
Oh, dark stuff. I mean, he just always he used to get giggle out of it. Like he would be in the car. We're on long road trips.
Yeah,
He would be focusing on a particular word, and once we said it, he'd bust out laughing.
right.
Like
The
I
power.
got you to say that. So he playing games like that with us as a kid, but also just the flip side of that is like he made me aware of that.
hmm
And as an adult, I will say some unnamed psychics have tried popping things in my head, and
Right.
I've caught them psychically doing it, and actually even like talk to them telepathically, like, "What are you doing?
Right.
Get out of here," kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
everything's for a reason. Had I not had my father, I don't think I would have recognized that sort of thing. But I just gotta say, if you have a really random idea pop in your head out of nowhere, you
Question it.
know, and sometimes it's innocent. I think let's say you're going through a breakup, right? And the ex is like obsessing on you, just obsessing and obsessing. I think in that case, you're picking up on stuff, and that's psychic manipulation. If they're going around the house screaming,
Right.
why, and really focusing on you, yeah, I think you can pick up on people that way too.
Yeah, when someone says here, is psychic manipulation against the law of free will? I say, well, it really depends on what you're connected with, because any relationship you've had, you've chosen. So if you're in that environment, then you're susceptible to any type of behavioral, tendencies from the person. So just as if you're in a relationship with someone and you don't recognize you're an abuser and they push you, you could say, is that against the law of free will? Well, you have the free will to determine how to exit the situation. You have the law of free will to understand to protect yourself from those situations. And first, you also have to learn discernment. Many people just don't have a discernment about these sorts of things. So it's important that we have discernment to learn too. So if you don't have discernment about the energy people are putting on you, well, then karma is that you got to learn it. That means you have to experience it, whatever it may be. And so, like you said too, Christopher, there's many people who have that sense of control and power over someone. So you also think, intellectually, like what vulnerabilities you have emotionally when it comes to your relationships. I see a lot of these psychic, warfare experiences with karmic relationships. Karmic
Yeah.
relationships are very heavy and intense because it's almost like trauma bonding in a sense. And so when there's a narcissist in the picture, and the buzzword of the decade, but we'll just say, for lack of better terminology, the narcissist, and there's the one that's kind of following the narcissist, they understand your vulnerabilities and they will send you signals. And a lot of times people say, I have so much anxiety, I'm not hearing from them, I feel anxiety. It's like because they're deliberately avoiding you to get you to reach out, so you flatter them and show them the attention. So you have to recognize, where's the anxiety coming from. A lot of times with psychic warfare, the key component you get and you understand there's a pull is that anxiety, that unknown anxiety that comes out of nowhere if you're not able to read the specific symbology. So please, if you have anxiety and it directs to your person, start elaborating what is that coming from and understand it's not you. And a lot of empaths, I'm sure you've seen, Christopher, your clients, that they tend to blame themselves. They're not doing enough, not showing up enough. It's like, no, that's the manipulation. And so I see a lot, like you said, there's a lot of people like your dad, people would recognize, and most people that scoff at these things, Christopher, are the ones that are doing it actually. Oh, that shit doesn't exist. Meanwhile, they're in the rooms doing their little channeling and manipulation. So yeah, the thing for me is to be conscious of your connections, one, and two, what type of responses are you getting from those connections, so you can actually shut down the pipeline per se, or close the pipeline from you experiencing or even giving that energy away. When you give it, they're going to feel it and they're going to take more of it too.
You know where you see psychic manipulation happening, like right out in front, out in the open, is The Price is Right. When when they're out there, they're like $3, $2. The whole audience is like screaming. $2. They're all trying to get like the person to say, and then she's like, $5. Like the contestants like just surrender to it, like $44. And it's like you're sure about that, like exactly. That's an interesting example of it. Yeah. Well, this is just the scratching of the surface here of psychic manipulation, Scott. But you have a product to sell today. What is it?
My psychic manipulations. I'm going to read you, and trust me, I can help you. No, I do offer sessions, so we're going to run a little promo, just psychic life readings. If you want to understand who is, maybe if there's a connection that's open that you're not aware of, I can actually help you to assist of where it's coming from and how to shut it down. So if you need assistance of understanding those types of connections, you can book a life reading with me. Or if you just want to see if you're actually getting that psychic connection from those who've passed on, I offer mediumship sessions as well. So it's good to get the clarity and get the tools that you need to actually understand, and so you can control the connections for yourself too. So scottcruzepm.com. That was unexpected.
Scott Cruz is popularly known for his life-changing one-on-one readings to also guide in your soul ascension journey. With life readings, get insight into your relationships, career, health, trauma healings, past life regressions, and more. Want to connect with a loved one who's transitioned? Scott's mediumship session can be the gateway to you and your loved ones in spirit, bridging the gap between the physical and the spiritual realm. If you want to enhance your own psychic ability, Scott's Intuition Builder session can help expand your psychic and mediumship abilities. So sign on to scottcruzepm.com to book your own personal session today.
Come Alive? Is that what you're singing there?
That's my song. One of my songs, Come Alive, right? Come alive, guys. Come alive.
Oh, I like it. Good song. Yeah. Groovy, man. Yeah, psychic. Yeah. So Scott is excellent, by the way, as a reader, just so you know. One of the best I've ever met in my life. Yeah, very good, real deal, hard to find, actually. Hard to find the real deal.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate
that. Wait, I think I was told to say that. I'm just kidding.
You were told.
Yes, you were psychic.
You used a couple words, but it was kind of on just, so it's okay.
So another psychic manipulation actually comes from the dead.
Right.
You brought that up, and I'll just bring up another story. So there was a time when I was living in Huntington Beach, and basically I kept waking up every morning, and I kept seeing this like visual of, you will have another son, and then it would show the sun. You will have another son, and it shows the sun. You will have another son, and shows the sun. And I was like, I keep having this recurring dream, Mom, that I will have another son, because I have one son, my son Miles.
Right.
And what was also interesting in that week was that in that same week, I heard from like 3 ex-girlfriends who suddenly wanted to see me. Like they were just like, how you been? Like, let's go out. And then one woman who was like a friend's ex-girlfriend, so like wanted to hang out with me. And I was just like, this is weird. Okay. So I call up my mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm getting a weird pattern here, And she's like, oh my God, that's your father in heaven. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, he wants to be reborn in the line. He's trying to manipulate you to have another son. I was like, oh my God.
Wow. That's scary.
The man does not rest. But it was like, wow, Jesus. I didn't even know you could do that shift from the other side. But you can. A lot of dreams and stuff, we get manipulated by, I know I've had a lot of dead relatives come in and just wreck my day with a weird dream. That's psychic manipulation kind of too.
Well, in a sense, like, I don't think manipulation is always bad, right? So we can manipulate energy, right? So if you fulfill karmic lesson, you can manipulate your energy space, get what you want. I don't think that's bad. It's just, you're manipulating energy. I think spirit does it sometimes for shock value, to get you to like realize something, right? And then sometimes just they think that it might get your attention to get a good message, to get inspiration. So I see a lot of times it's more helpful than not. Your dad still has that, controlling energy with you, right? And still coming from spirit to do so. So I think it's more telling of how you're still allowing that power, at least at that time, right? To
Well,
where you're still able
yeah.
to infiltrate, you know?
Well, psychic protection. Like I learned, like, oh, geez, I got to put a door here
Exactly.
too. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I asked the
And
women, like, why did you suddenly call me? They're like, I don't know.
yeah, right.
They didn't
They
know.
called,
I was like,
right.
but you did.
A lot of empty vessels out there, all
You
right?
have
A
no
lot of empty
recollection.
vessels.
Well, it
Yeah,
just was fine in their brain, so.
right. But even with, when it comes to like this, just the protection of that, we have to also think of people classify them as demons, and we'll do a show on angels and demons too to get more clear about the different dimensionalities of spirit. But we have to understand there's parasitic energies out there and entities. I tend to find that a lot of these parasitic entities are interdimensional beings that love to prey on fear, especially children. But if you're throwing energy away, and some people think it's evil, and I would say just like a virus we have in the body, would we call the virus evil? No, it's a life that's trying to cling to life. And so there are spirit beings like that. So if you're throwing away your energy, you're throwing your power, there will be a parasitic entity around you that'll definitely scoop up that energy and latch on to you. We got to be conscious of that type of psychic manipulation too from these parasitic entities. And we do that by understanding how we're exporting our energy. And that when you're not giving energy away for free, because if you went down to the mission and took a barrel of money and started throwing money out to the homeless, you think they're going to give that money back? They're going to grab as much as they can. So we just need to be conscious of that and to protect ourselves from even those lower level parasitic entities too, which I think a lot of people tend to have those types of, I would say succubus energies around them without realizing it.
You know what a good example of that is? When a baby steals a body. What happens is you'll be at the disco, you've had 2 or 3 drinks, and something will whisper in your ear, take her home. And something will whisper into her ear, take him home. I swear to Goddess, I think people get hijacked. I think some babies hijack a body where they kind of whisper in the ear of each of the partners to go out there and take her home, take him home, and boom. They're like, you'll be safe, you'll be fine. Don't wear protection.
Fine. Don't worry about this. You have plenty of money, even though you're on welfare. So.
No, totally. And when I was down for the count for that 9 months, I did hear some of those realms making suggestions. There is definitely demonic energies that will suggest things. And I'm a good heart guy. Like my heart doesn't think of bad things. So it was really fascinating for me because I think there was something about the medication I was on that was like twisting the frequencies open or something. But the point was, you can hear that stuff sometimes. I think people who are mentally ill can also sometimes hear those things.
Yeah. Well, and then a couple of questions here I think it's a good time to ask, like, how do you protect yourself from these attachments? By first recognizing it. You need to search within your psyche and your soul to find out, do you have attachments? And this is where the brain comes in, the mind comes in very simplistically, because intellectually, like, I still can't get over this person. I'm still hung up with this person. And the question is, why is anybody else taking precipice or taking a pedestal over you? That's how you know there's a connection that's more dominant. It could be fear, it could be deprivation, it could be worry, anxiety. Any connection of a person you have, that's an open channel. It could be someone in spirit, like you were saying before, Christopher, your father energy, all these different energies. If they have a dominion over your energy, the way to stop that is to understand the rationale. Why should anybody else have dominion over you, right? And so that's how you stop the channel, because you're like closing that water lever, right? Closing that faucet. So first is being conscious of what connections you might have, the attachments you may have, and being rational enough to understand no one should have the dominion over your own energy and shutting that down. It's very simple. It's more simple than people think. You can do a ritual if you want to amplify the energy, but it doesn't require all that.
Right. Well, I mean, when they're your father, they have dominion over energy. Like that's in some cases is that they have it because they're a spouse, or they have it because there's a close relationship there, and you didn't intend for that, but that's the way it turned out.
That's right.
Yeah. So what about psychic spies?
Well, yeah, the CIA back in the 50s and 60s, they utilized psychic spies to, find a location of a criminal. There was a police officer, I forgot his name. I did a show about this too. But he used to actually go out there and lead them to where they thought the suspect was, and they'd find them. And so they used to do remote viewing, actually. Yeah. And so I think that we said this before, Christopher, right? Like, there's no privacy in spirit. Everything's all open domain in spirit, right? No privacy. So we can actually attune, especially if someone's going against, free will in a sense, or living a karmic pattern that they need consequence. We can remotely tap into that and expose it. So, and they still use psychics now to, for crime and all these different things too. So even though they don't want to put us in the spotlight, they still take advantage of us. So
yeah, well, I mean, right? They don't want to admit it. Yeah. Well, the CIA has hired psychics to do remote viewing. It's completely out, so
Right.
if the CIA is relying on it to spy, and from what I heard too, when I looked in those programs, it was like they were describing the walls, the entryway, where the
Right.
locks were, where the
Yeah.
password was kept, like the whole 9 yards is all
Right.
there. There really is no secrets. There really are no secrets,
No.
really.
No. Not in
But I will
spirit. There isn't.
Although I can say this, I mean, I guess we'll just go ahead and start giving some protection. You can keep something from a psychic. You can.
Yes.
Basically, you can say well, it's a prayer, basically. You tell me your technique, I'll tell you mine. But like for one, for the technique of keeping, psychics or people from spying on my stuff, I'll just say this is in the vault. Spirit, this is in the vault. I'll call on Metatron or Michael. Do not allow anyone to read this energy. I need some privacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is growing up with a psychic mother, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty depressing when she can, I won't even go into it, but it
Right.
was weird, okay? Like it was invasion of privacy and crossing of boundaries. When it comes to things like protecting myself from my father, listen to me, I'm admitting my childhood, but like what I would do is I would imagine mirrors where the energy would just bounce back to him. And so just a
Right.
visualization of a mirror to bounce back, and
Exactly.
it turned it off,
Right.
and he never caught on to it apparently, or he didn't let me know he did. So to me, those are very simple. And you may go, really? It's that simple? Yeah,
It is that
actually, the
simple.
universe works that simply. Basically, it works in sign language. You tell the universe what you want, conscious will do it for you.
Well, that's where intention comes. I call it setting the parameters, right?
Okay.
Because just as if we're allowing the people to come in and we're setting parameters, I allow this connection. We're setting parameters like, no, this is a boundary, this is a protection. I don't allow this information to be public. I don't allow anyone to tap this information. I've had someone close who's trying to do psychic warfare on me too because they didn't like the response they got from me, and I push it back. I always kind of set up a parameter like I want to be conscious every time. Like you could set a default parameter that whatever you say to me, bounce off me, sticks to you type of thing, right? You could say that, but it's always good to be conscious of the entity where it's coming from and address it in those moments. This way you can be more specific to the individual, and it actually is more powerful to stop that. I felt someone pushing this energy of a loved one getting ill and loved one getting ill and losing, and I just said, I'm sorry, but this is going right back to sender. I said, you don't know what you're doing, and back to sender. And I felt, because when it happened, it woke me up in the middle of the night, and I knew the signature where it was coming from. That's this person's doing this on me right now. I got up, I sat there, and I focused, and I pushed it back, and I felt the anxiety go right out of me. And I never felt from that individual again. And a couple of times I've done that, they end up either in prison, on the streets, homeless, the loss of a job, and they try to, when I push the energy back to them. I don't wish those things. You should never wish that any ill intention back to somebody. Just send it back to them, and let the divine, render how the outcome will be. But yeah, I've had it woken me up in the middle of the night and trying to get my loved one sick, and I just say I don't allow anything outside of my own permission. So this way, if it does come, it's out of my permission, it alerts me instead of affecting me. I get alerted by that. So that's a parameter you can set up. And I love the mirror thing you mentioned too, because that's very true. Like you just want to, you should not be open to those sorts of things if it's coming just outside of the realm of your karma or free will.
Yeah, totally.
Back to sender. Send back to sender is what I say.
Crown chakra is like a radar dish, man. It's always
it's a receiver.
Honestly, most thoughts are not even yours. They're not even yours. A lot of people are like, I had this idea, and someone's like, I had that idea last week, and they get all competitive about it. It's like, no, you both downloaded the same idea in the universe of ideas, right? Like that's why script ideas, aren't unique. You're like, I had this brilliant script idea, and I can't tell you. It's like Spielberg's already writing it. Like he already downloaded. Actually, I've actually seen Spielberg in an interview where he says there's no original ideas. There's just there's original ways of making them happen. Right.
So when you say something from a perspective, that makes it unique, right? Because I never saw it from that lens before. That's the uniqueness of creation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all been created. It
is. Yeah, totally. No.
Someone psychically warfare you there for a minute?
No, I did something. I was picking up on something. Yeah, career or something. So energetically, we have to be careful too when we obsess on others. So we can be the accidental perpetrator of another person's energy, right? And it just comes from, and a lot of times I've seen it happen. I've seen the biggest things when couples break up. I don't know why, But like,
Of course.
like a lot of times I'm not being gender basic here, but the woman will be very angry. The woman will be very angry, and the guy will be like, I feel like crap, man. I don't know what it's just like, I think she's sending you a lot of hate, brother.
It sure is.
Like you did wrong. You can pay for it too. But even the idea of like a voodoo doll, like what about the ideas of like voodoo dolls and spells and things like that? That's kind of a weird
Right.
psychic warfare, isn't it?
It is, and it's a very archaic one too. But here's the thing: I think my view on this is that first, when someone encounters a psychic with negative intentions of power, they can read your fears and use it against you. I'm like, oh my god, but they knew this. Okay, I got to spend all this money. Now they're wrapped up. Now I'm under their spell because they found ways to get in that got you vulnerable, and now you can get sucked into that energy. The whole thing is about believability. Right. And so same thing like the voodoo dolls. And if someone has a connection to someone, this is more effective because if they start doing the voodoo dolls, they put their intention and say if the other party deserves it, they will get it, especially if they've done some harm. Now, the bad side's of black magic in a sense. If you're doing it to someone who's innocent, that will backfire unless the person is open to any type of vulnerabilities that's way. So it's not so black and white. I think we are protected by karma too. If it's not in our karmic lesson, then we're not going to experience it either. This is why it doesn't happen all the time, but I would say, like, again, you guys have to be very careful about what connections are activating, what you're allowing yourself to believe in when it comes to those connections. And also you cannot let people utilize your fears. We see that with media, right, Chris? And the news, we see using fears for people to kind of to manipulate the masses and to persuade the masses. So that is a key element of psychic warfare. So that can be done through voodoo dolls, television, past relationships. The modality is actually irrelevant.
Right. Absolutely. And some of that is like, well, for instance, now we're going to psyche warfare, which I think counts. Psyche warfare also kind of counts because, for instance, I mean, again, our good old CIA was doing some subliminal testing on our own public where they put, backwards things and, on film and like flash things. The most popular experiment that they did on our American people without them knowing was flashing the word Coke between the frames of a film. And Coke sales in that theater went up like 30% or something.
Yep.
So there is that as well. I personally believe as far as voodoo and whatnot, it's sort of an intention. I mean, if you think about manifesting reality, your favorite topic, if you think about manifestation, you just went ghost eyes on me there. That was a joke, buddy. Your favorite topic is what I said, manifestation.
I was reading a comment because you said career and somebody was typing the word career, so you picked up on it. So I was distracted.
Well, if we can create an intention, like I intend to be president one day, like Ronald Reagan, and we have that intention and we set that intention, it does go in the universe, right? Isn't that sort of a spell, right? And so to some degree, voodoo to me is like an intention, like you will fall off the cliff, and it just goes out as a wave. Now, I don't think it takes over. I think it has some sort of a suggestion. You should jump off a cliff. Oh, that's an idea.
Right, but the energy goes somewhere, right? So, that energy might go to somewhere who is like maybe more vulnerable to that. Maybe if you wish for somebody else to jump off a cliff, and they might meet that specific person, but if someone's more vulnerable and is active in their karma, they might jump off a cliff because they might be in a suicidal tendency, right? And so it really depends. It will go somewhere, but I always see the brilliance of this reality is it finds its match, though. It doesn't just go to a random entity. It will find its match somewhere. Do you want to be a participant in that of saying, well, I'm throwing that energy out? Yeah, I'll find its match. But do I want to be putting that type of energy out? That's a question. So, but sometimes we affirm things that's just out of, really not relevancy. Like I'm going to be a bird one day. It's like, but that's not relevant to your human life. So it's just a vapid thought, and it may not go anywhere, but I think that we should be very careful of the energies we're putting out there because we don't want to also, those vapid thoughts, Christopher, can stay in your own environment and bring confusion without you knowing it and lack of clarity because it lingers around. So you want to clear that shit out and be more, I would say, more conscious of your intentions and what's relevant, knowing your own life purpose.
Yeah, totally. And also, one of the things I'll say too for protection, on the protection note, is you really got to watch your own thoughts. And this is something we teach at Serious Joy from day one. You've got to watch your own thoughts because you have to be thinking and also watching what you're thinking. Because you will see, I mean, for instance, as a psychic, okay? I do have entities that come in a reading will suggest something really like weird, bizarre. And I know, and it feels off. It feels totally off. I think this is why the church, well, I don't know if the church had good intentions. I don't know, but I think they just felt like, no, don't ever go there at all. The occult's bad because the average person could not distinguish between the high vibe message and the low vibe message.
Sure.
I've even heard mediums. Like, for instance, I read a book that was channeled Jesus Christ. Okay. Channeled Jesus. And you read the book and it's like, feels like Jesus, feels like Jesus, feels like Jesus, does not feel like Jesus, feels like Jesus, feels like, and like, you could feel like, oh my gosh, something got in the way there. Something intercepted that signal from Jesus.
Yep.
And manipulate that one little thing. And in some cases, it's the one thing that like destroys the whole passage or makes it all moot or something like, a negative idea doesn't have to have much to ruin something good. Right.
Doesn't. But that's why we have to have discernment, because we can call that out. Like, you have discernment. Like, okay, this is great energy, but it's been hijacked. A lot of spiritual teachers that have been hijacked, even as of late, channels, been hijacked. And we're not feeling that same energy that we used to. Something's different now. And so I would say if we have discernment of that, then that's the key, right? And like knowing how to read that and be conscious of that, because we'll find more of the truth and also what's untrue. So, because there's a lot of spiritual teachings that have been hijacked, with other ideas and for control, for psyche, like manipulation, MK Ultra. If you remember MK Ultra back in the day, they utilized, the televisions to control people's minds and subjectivity and,
back
all that.
in the day. What are you talking about?
They started it back in the day. Still going on. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
It was called, that was the experiment back in the day. They called it that experiment. They used psych drugs, all these things and recorders under their pillows and the patients, and they would start believing that. And so that's when they actively were experimenting on that back in the day. But yeah, they do it now easily through fear and empathy.
I think the program's called now Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. Hollywood. MSNBC, Fox, and CNN, all of them,
Totally. All right. So getting back on topic, what was the show about again? Just kidding. So what about psychic warfare? Now, we talked about psychic spies, being able to spy on people and things like that, remote view, and see into things you're not supposed to see into. But there is psychic warfare, apparently. I mean, where people are literally trying to hurt other people.
Yes.
Right. There was an incident in Cuba. Did you hear about this? Where a bunch of people in Cuba got sick, like our own diplomats. Now, they were suspecting an energy weapon, but they found no evidence of it. None.
Wow.
And my thought was like, psychic warfare. That was my taking on that. I was like, in Cuba, alternative, outside the United States, and it's probably our own, the United States, our own people doing it, false flag sort of thing. But I do think it does exist. I have a sense. I mean, I can't prove it. But there are people who just go nuts, they're like turn on a dime, just like all of a sudden something happens, or even these like suicides. I mean, I've also thought, okay, these suicides, right, that happen all the time where someone was, outing a person for something. We won't go into any of the details. And suddenly they decide to jump off a bridge when just yesterday they're talking about going to Disneyland. So that's either like a dart that was like shot in their arm, neck, and then, an ultra like reprogramming in the middle of the night, or,
I think they utilize frequency for this stuff, for that type of psychic warfare too, like sound frequencies, pitches. And I've watched a documentary when I used to score music for Discovery Channel, History Channel. There was one show where they shown they could use tune frequencies to affect the moods, emotions of people. And so the other day, it was really strange. I was laying in bed, I just heard this like high pitched frequency. It wasn't in my ear, because I closed my ear, it was gone. But then when I got up, I didn't hear it. If I laid a certain way, I heard this high frequency buzzing tone. I'm like, that's really odd. And that was a day where people were just acting very chaotic. I had some guy gay bashing in the grocery store. People were starting to rile up and be argumentative. I'm like, why is it so busy? I'm like, I wonder if that high pitched frequency sound that I heard that day, it was a rather oddly chaotic day, had some sort of influence on people's psyche. And it wouldn't surprise if they they're using some sort of frequency tone way to alter people's personalities and behaviors either, if you're not susceptible to it. So it was so odd that it was like a consistent tone, and I only heard it if I was laying a certain way, and I'm like, that's very interesting to me. So I do believe they use frequency, and some people say 5G or 4G. I mean, maybe they can utilize the current of that for that. I don't think 5G in itself is putting that out, but they could utilize the technology of 5G to infiltrate certain frequencies to shift and shape up people's emotions and intentions. Why not? Why
I'm
would
glad
they
you bring
use
that
anything
up
else?
because there's a lot of conspiracy, these conspiracy things, and we just probably got flagged by YouTube and taken down. But because we said that word, I call it a business plan, not a conspiracy. But the truth of the matter is yes. I mean, maybe it is far fetched that it's being done, but the technology is there for it to happen.
That's
The
exactly my point.
technology is there. It
It's
could
there.
happen.
That's
And
right.
I don't know if you know the story of plane hijacks, okay, hijackings, but
Yeah.
the first plane, there was a what was it? Doo 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 doo. What was that
Twilight
series?
Zone.
Twilight
The
Zone.
Twilight
Okay,
Zone.
so Twilight Zone had an episode where there was a plane hijacked.
Yeah.
That was the first time the world had ever even thought of that idea.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, and the guy who wrote, I can't remember who wrote, who created that series. Basically, after that episode aired, it was like 9 months later, some plane was hijacked, and he
Right.
felt personally responsible for pointing out, the
Interesting.
vulnerability of a plane, right? So the
Well,
point
yeah.
is like, we just told someone how to do wave frequency manipulation, but 5G, I mean, we are cooking in all sorts of microwaves all the time. It would not be, it would not be difficult to make it like chalk on, nails on a
Right.
chalkboard
If
to
right.
where, yeah.
Right. If you don't want to overestimate the people doing it, don't underestimate the technology. Because if it's there to be utilized that way, we should be very cautious of that. Because there might be
Thank you.
somebody who would utilize that technology,
Yeah.
So, and like you said, with The Simpsons, the predictive programming, is it really predictive or is it creative? Or is it both? Right? Because they
Oh,
put all
that's
these
a
things out,
weird one. What do you think
right?
that is? What do you think that is?
I honestly think there are people, a part of the cult, people that do control things, that in order to almost like wipe out their karma, they got to present it somehow. They got to put it out there. They have to share it. They can't keep it a secret or keep it hidden. If it's not hidden, it kind of alleviates the karmic responsibility because, they were too stupid enough to recognize that they need to learn discernment. So I feel like by putting it out there subliminally this way, it's telling us, even though it's not really directly telling us, so it leaves us confused. So that's just on our side if we're too stupid for that. So I think that's why they do that. So I think it's predictive. I think it's also laying things out too.
Well, I think creativity is predictive. So if you're trying to be
Yeah.
creative or whatever, a lot of times I've tried to be funny and people are like, Chris, that happened. I'm like, it did? Like I was just telling a joke, so that happens too.
Well, we're on a path though. Like we signed up for a journey here, so there's a lot of it that's kind of going in a certain direction because I think these are great times to be conscious and great times to be spiritual right now. We're starting to awaken so much, and I was thinking this last night too. Like some people were saying, like where do these like groups of stupid people come from all of a sudden? Like these weird people, these weird ideas and so forth. I'm like, it's always been there. I said because we're all collectively evolving as a species. So those that before social media didn't really have a voice or platform to stand on, they've evolved now. They have social media as their voice, and so now we hear a lot of them. So it's always been there. I just think we're being exposed to it more, but we're all again evolving collectively. So now the people who are afraid to use their voices that weren't so bright are now not so bright, but now they're able to use their voices. That's why we're seeing a lot of that chaos right now. But that doesn't mean it's going backwards. You're actually still evolving, actually.
Yeah, that's my thought for narcissists. I thought only, in the old days, only Hitler and Mussolini and a few select could be narcissists. But now, with the advent of technology and everyone, proliferating from the power of technology, now everyone can be a narcissist. I think what happens is, I think everyone has to go through the lessons.
Absolutely,
I think,
100%.
it has to work completely out of the system, and all of that. Well, that now looks to the future. Let's predict the future. Actually, let's do a quick commercial break for me.
Yeah.
This is my commercial break. So my commercial break is Pluto's Last Stand. I'm holding a webinar on November 2nd. That would be coming up in a week from Saturday. This webinar is called Pluto's Last Stand. It's actually a workshop. What I'm going to do in this workshop is have you bring your astrological chart to class. I'm going to walk you through some of my proprietary step algorithms, and we're going to calculate your Pluto weakness so you'll understand where you are Pluto dumb. And everyone's Pluto dumb somewhere, by the way. Toodle D and Toodle dumb somewhere. And so we're going to look at where you're Pluto dumb, and you're going to be able to calculate, how to prevent from falling into that hole or falling into that mess. And then we're going to apply that Pluto dumbness to Pluto at 29. And you'll look at in your chart where you have to master Pluto 29. And then it'll end with a little introduction of what Pluto in Aquarius will be. So this is a once in a lifetime, literally once in a lifetime webinar called Pluto's Last Stand. It's focusing on these last 4 weeks of Pluto at 29, which, by the way, will be the most intense Pluto 29 we've ever had in our lifetime. I think people are going to, sneak, all sorts of little sneaky things in, right? Because they're losing, or they're not gaining the advantage that they want, or something like that. So I think ultimately this is one you don't want to miss, and it's priced very affordably. Just go to senseiChristopher.com, senseiChristopher.com. All right. There we go. I have my own jingle and everything. Beautiful. All right. So what do you think the future is? I mean, when we talk about psychic, thanks, Adam, for that.
That's pretty.
Adam's literally typing it up, like making the thing right there in the sweatshop in the back. Well, I mean, if everyone's becoming psychic, I mean, I do think everyone's going to, well, first of all, everyone is psychic. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
Everyone is. You just think it's your imagination. You think it's a voice in your head. You think it's your creativity. You're labeling it as different things, but you're psychic. What I realized, I mean, and your chart can tell you how psychic you are.
That's right.
Right? But I wonder, in the future, will we have secrets?
Interesting. Well, here's the thing. I don't think we have secrets now. It's out there. We just have to dig for it. Have you ever seen the Illuminati card deck from the 80s? It kind of predicts everything in the card deck about what's happening with our future and presence and all that stuff. So I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's kind of crazy. It's called the Illuminati card deck.
Or did they make it happen?
True. It could be that too. But
yeah.
I don't think, honestly, the more aware I become of my own spiritual growth and evolution and more objective, I feel like nothing's secret. Everything's all out there, and so I think in the future we all become more conscious of that there's no secrets. So for me, I think the future is more bringing a collective awareness, objectivity to us. We're starting to see things more and more, and so I think the political divide has helped with this. Honestly, we needed this political shift. People are seeing things a lot clearer now than they used to. So my prediction is that people become more objective and more aware that they've seen the secrets already. So I think there's no secrets now. It really depends on your discernment. And like you said, Christopher, before, if you're actually illuminating your intuitive awareness or psychic ability or not. Many people aren't. They're just dazed. You could put a sandwich in front of their face. Like, what is that? A donut? Like, so there's people that are so removed that, it really depends on the awakening phase. No, there's no secrets now either.
Well, there are some. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, there's physical secrets, but as us intuitives, we see through that. We can see right through those barriers of physicality.
It's all in heaven. It's all in heaven.
Right, exactly.
Heaven sees everything. The Akashic record records every thought, every feeling, everything you do, everything.
Right.
There is no hiding from God. It is a total humiliation when you go to heaven. Total.
That's right.
Looking at all the things you've done or whatever. So it's been recorded. I feel like I actually feel it's the awakening of psychic ability and telepathy. That's going to probably end corruption. I really do. I feel like
I agree.
No one's going to get away with any lies. No one's going to get away with stealing stuff. We're talking about if the average person can psychically detect that someone's stealing, you're going to have like people just, hovering around I was trying to think of that one that's Enron building. Remember Enron? Like if you have like a company like Enron that's stealing or whatever, people just be like, something's wrong with this building,
right.
So I feel like it's going to be an interesting, and here's the thing, when we say the future, we're talking about my grandkids, right. I think that are pretty much open. It's right around the corner. The fact that we're talking about on a web show right now says it's already out and out there. And it's just people need to practice. And by the way, we practice every day at SeriousJoy.com.
Yep.
We help you practice your psychic abilities. You just need to practice it over and over and over again. And watch your thoughts. Watch your thoughts.
The ones to be objective.
You request and the ones that just pop in there. It's something very interesting going on. So before we end the show, we have one more promo, and it's from our friend Mama Bear. she has a certification course that she's selling right now, and we recommend you sign up. Mama?
Wild Pack, it's Mama Bear, aka Bernadette, the Arc Animal Tarot and Oracle certification class that you guys have asked me for 4 years. 4 years you've been asking. It's finally coming. It will be out this week. If we haven't met yet, I'm Mama Bear, and I always read with my own deck, the Arc Animal Tarot and Oracle deck, 223-page book. There are 149 cards. It's a big old deck, but there were a lot of animals that wanted to be in it. And animals don't play. When they want something, they want it. And that's that. So just give up the ghost and just do what you're supposed to do, please, which is follow your heart, follow your calling, follow your, oh, wait, what are they called? Natural instincts?
Whoa, that last line was like 3D in my head. Like, I think she used some psychic warfare on me to get to buy her. There was something there. Like, yeah.
I love her.
Intense. I love her too. She's amazing. And y'all, if you don't have, if you want to develop psychic abilities, I mean, this is a great class because the animals are so grounded. Everyone can read an animal. Go stare at a giraffe. You'll feel them after about 2 seconds. You'll feel their energy. It's real obvious. It's like sort of kindergarten for psychic awareness. And basically the kindergarten of the planet Earth, what Mother Earth, gave us as our little instruments to help us, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of tools. We can utilize as guide points for that too. I mean, I offer intuition builder session in my session as well to help one-on-one. If you want to do one-on-one, I offer that as well too, to develop your intuition abilities, psychic abilities, mediumship abilities. So you all have resources here. So there's no excuse to tap into that discernment or abilities. We have plenty of resources here through different modalities. So take advantage, because be a part of that awakening phase. So we can actually be the ones that reveal all the secrets. Right, Christopher?
Oh, the awakening phase. Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, so moving forward, I would say pay attention. This is just a little Halloween challenge. Yeah, I would say pay attention to what you pick up around Halloween, and there's a reason why. When we cross over, we have a new moon coming up right on that line this year. And so what's going to happen is the new moon is a dark moon, if you don't know. Well, you know, but like the planet may not know. So what happens is that you have a dark moon right around the darkest space of the year. And so the veil is very thin, right? As far as, I think that the reason why pagans actually started to spook each other out with this was because you really can kind of click to the other side a lot easier. Dreams are more proficient. You sometimes can pick up on you literally can pick up on energies. I've even, like, around this time of year will see stuff, like see shadow people. But it's because the veil is thin. It's very thin, because what Scorpio is the veil, basically. So a little experiment. I would love, I tell you right now, if anyone has a really good story of something that they see over Halloween and the new moon, when the moonlight is dark, it's like an anti-Halloween, because Halloween is like a full moon, right? That's illumination, like bringing illumination. New moon is darkness, right? If you have something really interesting, Scott and I'll bring you on the show. Tell us about it.
Yeah. And any type of experience with interdimensional beings too. Some call aliens, but there's a lot of interdimensional beings that roam around this time too, just FYI. So you might think it's actually a ghost or a spirit section, interdimensional beings, we call aliens, whatever the case. There's a lot of those roaming the earth, FYI. And a lot of times, a lot of people think it's a shadow being or a shadow entity. It's like, actually, no, it's an interdimensional being. So
yeah, and some people think it's Scott Cruz, but it's not.
That's right. It's a shadow version. Boogie woogie. Make sure you do everything right. Make sure you keep things in order.
That's right.
Not a peeping Tom.
All right, friends. Well, I think this is another phenomenal show here. We're very excited to be talking about this topic. If you have ideas of things you'd like us to dive into psychically, put it in the comments. We'd love to hear about it. Yeah. Be sure to also follow our channel, hit the bell button so you're notified. And remember, don't put up with a shift show, folks. Lead out loud. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys. It's just the two of us again here down the bottom.
Oh, that's right. I forgot we have to keep entertaining.
With the logo. We're an animated logo. LOL.
Who's Adam anyways? I keep hearing about it.
Look, see, LOL, look.
Oh, these credits are outdated. We're down to 2 now.
This is our spot here. See? LOL.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Drink that coffee, Christopher. Wake up. Drink it.
We love you too, everyone. We love you too.
Bye, guys. See you next week.
Bye.